Her husband had a 99% blockage in three main arteries to his heart. They were 1 week away from boarding a flight to Italy. The doctor told her, had they gotten on that plane, he wouldn't have made it. That night, while he was in the ICU, Nichole Lowe went home and did what most of us don't do in a crisis. She made a decision. By morning, she had enrolled in a health coach training program, and it changed her life. That wasn't the last time she'd make a move that most people wouldn't. She walked away from a 12-year career in entertainment, including 3 years producing for Prince, yes, the artist Prince, at Paisley Park. She left a high-performing corporate sales job without a plan, without savings, and without clients. She started coaching out of a 10 by 10 room behind a dentist's office, and when her first client sat down across from her, she said, "You know what? You're my first. I'm going to fumble, but I promise I'll be on this journey with you." And that client hired her on the spot. Today on the Radigan Roundtable, the full story of how Nichole Lowe became a health coach, why she was more afraid of staying in her really cushy corporate job, more afraid of staying than leaving, and what she'd tell you if you're sitting on the fence about making a change right now. I'm Scott Radigan. Let's get to it. We're so excited to welcome you to the show, Nichole Lowe. Thanks for being here.
Thanks. Really appreciate it, Scott. I'm looking forward to this.
So I'm excited to chat with you because you have multiple kind of founding or starting companies, and we'll get to all of those. But how did you get to where you are today? Like, what got you into becoming a certified health coach in the first place?
Thanks again for having me. And it's a great question, great place to start. Coaching is just a lot of us coaches, our path was very crooked before we got into coaching. And oftentimes it's because there was something that happened in our lives that forced us to pivot. And for me, it was back in 2012, my husband had undiagnosed coronary artery disease. And it was bad and it was undiagnosed by hospital, urgent care, cardiologists, doctors. They all said he was fine until we found ourselves in the hospital and they went in for an emergency angiogram and found that he was 99% blocked in three main arteries to his heart. And he was laying there about to have a massive heart attack. We were shocked. And the scary part about it is that we were 1 week away from going to Italy. And had we gone to Italy, the doctor said there's no way we would have taken out of LAX, gotten to the air, and there's no way he would have made it. So that moment was a moment, it was a wake up call for both of us. And for me, while he was laying in ICU, I went home, crying. I was very upset. And at the same time, I had a high pressure job at a corporate gig. I was on just on that path, that career path, and covering half of the United States, traveling a lot. And by the morning, I had found Institute for Integrative Nutrition, which is a health coaching school. And I really fell in love with that only because I was really curious, how could I help my husband? Like, what does this mean to have a lifestyle overhaul? Like, how am I going to help my husband get through this? And he was the motivation for me becoming a coach.
So, yeah, let's back up. We're originally, I mean, that's amazing and kind of fortuitous that you didn't go to Italy. Probably would trade that for what you got back in return. So you said you were in corporate. So coming out, you didn't go to school for healthcare or anything like this. It took a personal shift to kind of get you into it. What were you doing at the time, and what was your background from school, and how did you get into the corporate world?
Sure. So prior to the corporate world, I was in film. I was in the entertainment industry. Based out of Minneapolis, I also did a lot of work in New York and LA. And for about 12 years, I was in it, from working on the sets with City Slickers, White Sands with, Mickey Rourke, all the way to award-winning rollerblade commercials to ultimately, I worked for Prince out at Paisley Park for 3 years, about 2.5 years. And I did a lot of producing for him, did all that. And another moment in time, I got to a place where I felt like, producing just was not really tapping into what I felt like I was meant to do. I love the creative process. I loved working with talent, but I really was also going through a personal transformation in my own life where I thought, it's a crazy industry and it's based on so much insecurity and chaos. And I really wanted to, I think, go out and be a grown up, just be like, learn how to live in a world that's not all fantasy and glitz and glam. So I moved to LA. I know that's a wild thing to think of, but I moved to LA, and the moment that I met Michael, my now husband, like literally 2 weeks after I moved, which is a crazy story in itself because I moved to LA. I'm like, I'm single. I'm just like, this is going to be great.
Hmm.
I meet Michael, and we were friends before we got married. Anyway, the last gig that I did in the film industry, I was working for Channel 4 in the UK, and I was working on this project called Bonsai, and I was the US producer. So I was working on, like talent and just producing the whole, US shoots. So that was a lot. And we had a shoot that was scheduled in New York, and we were actually supposed to be on the first Twin Tower on 9/11. My crew and I at 6 a.m. was the call time. And a couple of days before that happened, we got a call from London saying, that we're going to pull that shoot. And I said, why? And they said, because you're over budget. And, I'm just full of all that, young energy, and I'm fighting with the executive producer. I'm never over budget. And we kind of, and I really pushed. I really, really, really pushed to have that shoot happen, and it didn't. And we were saved. And like my whole world completely changed in that moment. A few weeks later, I was just dating, said, hey, I'm going to the UK for 35 days, for like 6 weeks. Do you want to come with me? And I said, yeah, because all my contracts fell through. I didn't know what I was going to do. He was cute. He had a great British accent. Like, let's do this. So we went to England, and just, I fell in love with him. I fell in love with the idea of getting out of the industry. And, that's when I made my big pivot.
I would love to learn how you met him. You said that's a story. That's another story. How did that go? What was that like in a huge city like LA? It had to be really scary.
You sure you want to ask me this question? Because I'll try to keep it short. It's a crazy, crazy question. So he was also a confirmed bachelor, and I was pretty much on a career path, and I don't know. I never thought that my life was meant to, get married and have kids. And I just was always so passionate about like working a project and building teams and building businesses. And he was pretty confirmed. Like, he just, like, a lot of people loved him. He was just charming and British. We actually met him through my father, who was working at the Fullerton Civic Light Opera Company in Orange County. Michael, my husband, is a brilliant photographer, just absolutely brilliant photographer. And I got this gig doing this photo gig, and I am not a photographer. So I called my dad and said, do you know any photographers? He's like, oh my God, I got this great photographer. His name is Nichole Lowe. And I'm like, oh, great, great, great. And then my dad paused. Are you still there? Yeah, honey, I just want you to know that, he's a confirmed bachelor. All the actresses are madly in love with him, and just da da da. I just want to kind of like, make sure that you know what you're getting into. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I met him, and he's going to kill me for saying this, but the moment I met him, he insulted me. He said something like, women are bad at directions or something crazy like that. And I thought, this isn't going to work. So he and I, for 3 months, we worked together on a couple of gigs together, and we just built such a strong friendship. And that's how we met. And so we kind of went from this to, hey, I love you. Hey, I love you. You want to get married? Sure. That's how it went.
Okay. I feel like we skipped a couple months at least.
We did.
But
We did
yeah,
the short version. It wasn't the short, but it wasn't the long either.
that's amazing. I mean, he's essential to your story here. It's so I wanted to kind of get to that. Okay, so you were in the film industry, and then you pivoted and you wanted to go get a grown-up job. What did that look like?
I had no idea. We went to England and we came back, and I thought, what am I going to do? I'm a producer. I've managed multi-million-dollar budgets, managed, teams and talent and all of that. What am I going to do? And my husband was also a salesperson. He had a great sales job at the time. And he said, you'd be great at sales. I said, sales? Yuck. No, I don't want to do sales. At the time it was so beneath me. Sorry if I'm offending anyone. But I just thought, no, I am a producer. I'm a creative. I'm not a salesperson. He says, I think you'd be amazing. Well, I got hired I got my first, I wasn't even looking for a sales job, but somebody that I had met owned this business and said, I would love to hire you as a salesperson. And I'm like, all right, I guess I'll try it. And within the first couple of weeks, I like signed my first big deal. And I was like, well, that was fun. And then I got my check. I thought, I can do sales. I love sales.
Right.
Drank the Kool-Aid, and off I went. So I ended up just doing sales for a few years. And then that grew into what was called, my title was a education business development manager for the Han company, really something really sexy, furniture.
Hmm.
Oh, but what I loved about it, it was like deal making. My territory was huge. I had the Western United States. I was traveling, making deals, putting together. What I loved was like thinking about our distribution channels and the customers, customer satisfaction, and thinking about contracts and agreements and like putting it all together. I was so lit up by that. It was really a fun opening experience for me getting into business and just seeing this whole new world unfold in front of me.
Okay, so that's the fun part of working in business, and the checks don't hurt either. So then fast forward to you are at this company, and then your husband has a big health scare. You go and get training at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. What was the, what was the goal there? Did you do that while you were still working at your corporate job? Were you just like, I'm out, I'm gonna go be a health coach? How did this all unfold?
Yeah, I was just kind of making it up as I was going. I wasn't even sure. Honestly, I didn't even have a clear plan. I would love to say that, okay, this was my plan and I worked the plan and I put this amount in savings and then I started my business and everything was like, I get this great story, right? I didn't really know what I was doing. I just know that I needed to do something different. Like I felt this really strong calling that something had to change and I wanted to be a part of that. So, to answer your question, I was still working at my day job and I was just studying and exploring, and I was doing all these other little certifications as well, and just really, really diving into the health and wellness industry. And I did that for about 9 months until I finally left my corporate gig.
So I'm noticing a trend, and that is that you're not afraid to leave something that you've built, like spend a lot of time building capital and getting experience and getting your foothold into an industry. You were working on big projects and for big names in the production phase of your life. And then you kind of walked away from that, so to speak. And then you kind of came into a lucrative and quote unquote adult job, which is a little bit safer.
Mhm.
And then, walked away from that, it sounds like. What was the, if you can remember, what were you feeling when you were ready to leave the production company, and did that differ from leaving a safer corporate corporate job?
100%. 100%. Leaving the film industry was different. Leaving the film industry, when I look back on that experience and I think about that person who I was at the time, I, I don't know that I would have actually left had it not been for 9/11. I think I probably would have reinvented myself in some other form in the entertainment industry. I would have carved out some other niche. But I think 9/11 and falling in love with my husband, it was just a clean break. It was an absolute pivot. And I was also, honestly, when we're younger, we're just so full of it's me, me, me. You just, your frontal lobe hasn't even been developed yet. And you're just like doing all this stuff. And I just think, back on myself at that time that I don't think I really thought through the ramifications of leaving such a big business that I had built. But it was also really challenging too, because I was a big fish in a small pond in Minnesota. And New York, I was having a great time. And LA was different. It definitely was a different culture, different experience. And so I think the two pivots are different for me. I think that, both does absolutely speak to who I am at the core. And I'm very, I, I just like, you just get, I don't know if it's the Midwestern in me and growing up on a farm in early days, but I just like, you just get up and do, like, just get on with it. Just here you are. Oh,
I mean, yeah, it's a mindset not everybody has. So I'm just really curious to dig into it. So you're getting into, and thank you for that. You're
yeah.
getting into integrative nutrition mainly to support your husband and kind of do a lifestyle overhaul for him, and I assume also for you. And then at that point, what was it that made you? Well, we said you were leaving, but what did you leave to go do?
Yeah. So honestly, I didn't have a clear plan at the time, but it's a great question. But I did have some of a plan. I'm joking. I think what I went to do first is I was at the time helping my husband with his health. And what was remarkable is here he is with coronary artery disease. Here he is. And by the way, What happened in that hospital, the hospital wanted to do quadruple bypass surgery. And this doctor, who I had never met, said, well, there is an alternative because my husband did not want to have scarring. This is his motivation. This is his thinking as he's lying there in hospital.
Right.
And this doctor, amazing doctor, said, well, there is an alternative. We could do stents. And I'm actually the only surgeon in Southern California at the time that went through the wrist instead of the groin. So we could travel in a few weeks. So we could just delay the Italy trip. So my husband made that decision without like talking to me. He's so the nurse comes out and tells me all this. I'm like, okay, well, let me talk to Michael. And he says, I'm sorry, he's already made the decision. I'm like, okay, great. And so I call my family, and I've got doctors in my family, and they're just not making things better. They're telling me, oh my gosh, he should be having, quadruple bypass surgery. So I'm freaking out. So to answer your question, so this was all the more serious for me to really figure out he's got stents now. And now we have to focus on blood pressure. We have to focus on cholesterol. We have to focus on stress. And so IAN really taught me that. I just loved that. And so I took that training, and my first client was my husband, and I helped him. And Dr. Moran and I used to kind of do his doctor, I should say, I probably shouldn't call him. So his doctor and I, the cardiologist, would do this at first. I'm like, hey, I want to put him on this, pharmaceutical grade red yeast, and I want to take him off statins. And he's like, no, you can't do that. Hey, I want to take him off the metformin, and I want to do this. And so finally we worked with his doctors. He said, okay, I will work with you, Nichole, but I want him to come in every 2 to 3 months, and we're going to run blood work because I want to make sure that his blood work is still good. And guess what? It was. So we healed him and we helped him, and he went off all the medications. And here he was with great blood work, like consistently every 3 months, over and over again. And his cardiologist was like, wow, this is cool. And he said, I'd love to send you patients. And I said, okay, let's do this. So he started sending me patients, and that's how I got started.
Amazing. And are you still balancing your job at this point?
And yes, this was towards the end. This was, I don't think I actually took on clinical patients like that until after I left my corporate gig. But yeah, it was kind of in the making right before I left corporate.
And what year is this, if you don't mind?
2012.
It's 2012. So you left without having clients yet.
Correct.
Okay, that I'm digging in on this one in particular because a lot of people that listen to this show are considering leaving a safer job to go start their own thing. What is it, do you think, that gave you the courage? And courage doesn't exist without fear. What were you most afraid of before?
I was afraid to stay. I did not want to wake up one day and I am close to meeting my maker and looking back and regretting that moment. I knew that if I stayed, that I would become complacent. And although there would be some form of security, we're never really secure. Companies can go out of business. Life events can happen. And so the alternative for me in staying outweighed the risk of leaving.
I love that. Okay, so we're fast forwarding to now you have some paying clients. You don't have your corporate income, I would imagine, on day one. Had you saved up before you left? Was this a long time decision? Or was it just like, I'm out, I'm jumping with both feet, let's burn the ships, we're going?
I'm out. We took both and my husband's a risk taker, which is as its pros and cons for both of us in our marriage, 25 years together, because we're both risk takers. We talk about that a lot. We did not plan it, and we just dove in. And both Michael and I, we both have God in our lives. We have a very strong faith. And so we prayed on it, and we just looked at each other and said, all right, we're either all in or we're not. Like, we got to just commit and do. And we made that choice.
Amazing. I mean, risk, no reward without risk, right? So you are now just seeing clients as a health coach. Did you identify as a health coach or kind of more nutritionist?
Yeah,
Health
as
coach.
a coach. And I actually went the extra mile. I got board certified with NBHWC. So I was
hmm
board certified health coach.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So you're doing that for a while. And then how did that go? Did it come naturally since you had started a few things? You had kind of been entrepreneurial spirit in the past?
Yeah, it was fun. My first gig is my first gig. I love saying that. My first little thing I did is I got this little tiny little 10 by 10 brick and mortar, which was behind a dental office. It was like my dentist. And he had this, like, you could go through the lobby and then go back and open up this door. And there's this room, but there was also an outside door. So my clients could come in that way. It was just like,
Mhm.
so I was terrified. I was terrified to take on my first client. I had done some peer to peer coaching, Michael, but like that first, I'll never forget her. That first client who came in and we just made it up together. I approached that moment and I said, "Look, you're my first. I am absolutely not going to tell you that I know everything and I have all the answers. I just know that I care so much about this, and whatever you are struggling with or whatever you're coming to me with, I just promise you I'm just going to be on this path with you and this journey with you. And I'm going to hold your hand and we're going to do this together. But I'm committed to you, but I just want you to know that you're getting a coach who's going to fumble." She's like, "You're the person I want to hire." And so we just did. We had a great time together.
That's amazing. I mean, a lot of people would be afraid to admit that and appear vulnerable or like they don't know what they're doing to a client who's paying them. What kind of gave you that inspiration to come out and just say it?
It sort of just came out in that moment. I didn't plan it. It just happened. And I think the one thing that I have learned through making this mistake a million times in my own life is that when you show up with a wall around you, that people mirror that. And when you're not authentic and you're trying to hide behind imposter syndrome, when you're trying to hide it, people sense that energy and that can create a whole world of wrong, from connecting with the wrong community to like not getting your client or thing. And there's so much. And so having made that mistake so many times, having life beaten me up so much, I don't know. I just got to the place, Scott, where it was like, here I am. I'm excited. I want to do this. I hope you trust me. I want to do this together. I'm committed to you, but I'm not sure that I just want you to know who I am. I'm human.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think to your point, I think people appreciate that honesty and transparency more than I know everything kind of a mantra.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So, all right. So now first client out under your belt. Great. We're feeling great. Now, this is still 2012, 2013-ish, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so you're coaching, you've got now a roster of clients, I imagine. And then what's going on in the business there that, how long did you do that before you started getting an inkling to leave this job?
Yeah, so I'm trying to remember. So what happened is, so I started doing this and I wasn't making a living wage yet. I mean, there was like, there's not a lot of income. There's a lot of money going out the door. There wasn't a lot of income. And my husband through this entire journey has been super like supportive, and then now he's like, "Well, honey, it's been 6 months. Like what do we think we better do? Like we need to start seeing that needle moving forward." So I did two things. One is I reached out to IIN because I knew they had this job, not a good paying job, but fair enough, good gig, called a coaching circles coach. And so what this coach does is they hire coaches who then lead these teams of about 10 or 12 coaches towards the end of the certification. And there's like you meet with them over several weeks to help them kind of close out their certification, answer questions, and then help prepare them for starting a business. And I did it. And I called them and I got the job and I took on two cohorts every like semester. And I did that for like a year and a half. And so I think during that time, I was coaching maybe 600 coaches over this period of time. And what happened is that because everybody found out that I work for Prince and then I have this background in film and business, they all wanted to meet with me outside of the coaching circles calls. And I started to build a business that way. And I started coaching other coaches. And what I found during that experience is everybody was struggling with the exact same thing. I'm equipped, I'm passionate, I'm ready, I'm certified. I had no idea how to start a business now. Where do I find clients? How do I build a business? Where do I go and get my LLC? What's the legal stuff I need to think about? What's my operations? How do I even network? Like there were so many questions and they were all consistent. And at the time I'm trying to like find plugins to help create systems and automation, and I'm trying to like jam a square peg in a round hole in an industry that just didn't have the tools that they needed. And it was then I started like hacking together things. And that's when I came up with Zoe is during that time.
All right. So, I mean, I think we've all been, those of us that have run businesses online, have been struggling with like all the different tech stack tools that don't always talk to each other. Wow, I could talk to Nichole for hours and hours, and we went over an hour. So that's the end of this part one, which is where we're going to have to leave it. Now, part two is coming up and it should be available right now. So go check that out. But just to recap, the incredible story we just heard, Nichole left her successful career, started from scratch, and built a coaching practice just by being honest and transparent. But that's only half of the story. Because in part two, we get what happened when she decided to build a tech company instead, with no technical background, no co-founder, and an idea she couldn't stop thinking about, including the moment she was ready to quit and give it all up again, the investor who almost walked away, and the cyber attack that nearly took everything down for a second time. What did she do next is the next part of the story. Go see part two at the Radigan Roundtable, and we'll see you there. I'm Scott Radigan. Thanks for being here. Go check out part two.